Hello, I'm Tim Rogers. You are watching Kotaku.com. I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna The Golden Country. It's an expansion to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's also a standalone game. Whatever qualification box you choose to put it in, you might as well also call it a great example of DLC. Maybe the C in DLC stands for Chronicle in this case. Maybe instead of calling it DLC, they should have called it AXC, Additional Xenoblade Chronicle. Well, that's enough of that joke. I played this whole expansion from start to finish, and I loved its big, huge, virtuosic 3D geometry toy boxes as much as I loved those of its parent game. Now allow me to present you 7 thoughts I had while playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna The Golden Country. These characters sure are relatable. In order to understand and feel for Rex, the protagonist of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you needed to first understand that he lived on a boat being dragged through the sky by a giant, millennia-old dragon that he called Gramps, and that his day job was wearing an old-timey diving suit and dangling his body beneath the liquid-like cloud sea as he scrounged for artifacts of a vanished civilization. Rex makes the acquaintance of his eternal companion Pyra while excavating a sunken battleship in the company of some treacherous villains. She brings him back from the dead after his shady clients murder him in a cutscene involving church bells. Pyra is a blade, an omnipotent, immortal being who must serve one human in order to possess its own consciousness. In Torna The Golden Country, you play as Laura. Her blade, Jin, rescued her from her abusive stepfather. Together, they've been looking for Laura's lost mother for 17 years. Yes, they've known each other for 17 years, and he still won't let her borrow his flat iron. Games are too long these days. Not this one, though. Because each of the elements of the characters' personalities are instantly relatable, the game doesn't have to spend 6 hours lecturing you about every world-building bullet point. Learning what a blade is required maybe 1 full calendar day's emotional labor on the part of a player of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. However, because most humans who play video games generally know what a mom is, Torna The Golden Country can just get started and story stuff can commence happening pretty much right away. That's neat. Not an hour into the game, you meet a prince, and then an emperor. Few Japanese role-playing games sprawl with quite the abundance of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, so it's quadruply interesting to watch its makers work with such a lean premise. It turns out that some of the same people who were responsible for Xenogears Disc 2 actually can accomplish wonders with brevity. Torna The Golden Country takes you to just a few locations, though it squeezes shimmering, tasty driplets of meaning out of each of them at whatever pace the player desires. If you ask me, video games are too long these days. My maybe controversial stance is that games should be less than 50% main campaign and more than 50% optional content. Also, the optional content I'm talking about should be just as good as the rest of the game. By optional content, I don't mean a boss rush mode or the industry standard procedurally generated debuffed permadeath basement zone. Just gimme a Zelda where Link only needs to get 4 MacGuffins from whichever 4 of the 8 dungeons he feels like, and I'd be weirdly more likely to beat all 8 dungeons just to prove to the game that I care. Well, that's enough psychology for today. This sure is a prequel, and it sure feels like one. Torna The Golden Country takes place 500 years before Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Wow, that means the Morardain soldiers have had exactly the same armor and exactly the same battle cries for 500 years. You don't need to have played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to play Torna The Golden Country. This is a smart financial decision on the part of its developer Monolith Soft. Market analysts must have convinced them that requiring 80 hours of homework tends to frighten most people away from the prospect of purchasing a new video game. Whenever I ask readers on Twitter to ask me questions about a game I'm making a video about, the most common question I get is always, do I need to have played all the other games in this series to appreciate this one? I just realized that that question indicates that almost every game I ever make a video about is a reboot or a remake or a sequel. Game publishers have clearly picked up on consumers' developers' trepidation and are thus producing games whose deepest links elsewhere in their respective franchises are spiritual, mechanical, and ethereal, rather than concrete and homeworky. Torna The Golden Country's publishers really want you to think that you don't need to have played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in order to appreciate it. While playing, I tried to put myself into the mind frame of a person who had never played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, of someone who didn't know what an Aegis was, or didn't know that 500 years from now, Jin would be accompanying Malos on a mission to purloin and destroy an Aegis. Trying to think like a person who had never played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 made me feel like a liar, especially while playing Torna The Golden Country. All that this thought experiment accomplished was the unearthing of a memory that I'd taken a girl who had never seen a Star Wars film on a date to see Star Wars Episode 1 in 1999. Oh God, I've never admitted that to anyone, and here I am admitting it all over my Philco keyboard, premeditating a situation in which I have required myself to commit a spoken confession into a microphone 10 minutes from now. I can always delete these words. Why am I not deleting these words? Why do I know I am going to read the line? Why am I not deleting these words? In case you were wondering, in 1999, I was in college and I was hot. I had abs. What I'm saying is, the girl didn't break up with me immediately after the movie. This battle system sure is loud. I could talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 2's battle system for about as long as Castor Troy could eat a peach. That's a reference to the film Face Off, starring Nicolas Cage, who is, at the moment of this writing, starring in the film Mandy, playing at a theater somewhere near you. Xenoblade Chronicles 2's battle system possesses the rare sublime flow that coaxes you simultaneously toward and away from it. You think you understand it, meanwhile thinking you do not understand it. When you lose, you think it might not have been your fault. When you win, you think it might have been your fault. Its details require tutorials to expect the player's proficiency in MOBA vocabulary. Tutorial descriptions of buffs and bonuses abound with instances of aggro and AoE. That stands for Area of Effect. Your character attacks automatically while you are standing still. You choose where to stand and when. Your stronger attacks charge up as your weaker attacks land. In Xenoblade Chronicles 2, a thread of light joins driver and blade. The driver fights, the blade supports. In Torna The Golden Country, you can change the blade and driver's roles. The attacking character is called a vanguard. The supporter is called a rear guard. Your incentive for switching is that the character in rear guard recovers lost HP. Also, their special attacks charge up. Xenoblade Chronicles 2's battle system's purest strength was that it gave the player's mind a lot to keep track of. When you start playing, you might be thinking, maybe I should just cut all my hair off so I won't have to deal with it anymore. And then 2 minutes later, you're looking at some giraffe-like thing and you're like, all right, let's go kill that. And then all your real stress is gone, replaced with numbers and meters and gauges and blade combo flowcharts. In adding the ability to switch between driver and blade, Torna The Golden Country has gifted the player another manageable worry. The battles are now faster and louder than ever. The noises and battle cries overlap unto a facsimile of a pachinko parlor's white noise. In the original Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it might have seemed silly that a character might yell the same thing, with the same inflection, 9 times in uninterrupted succession. It was ridiculous. Now it is no less ridiculous. However, it is less alone. What was once a carpet of noise is now an ocean of noise. It is majestic. What I'm saying is, I strongly recommend playing this in portable mode with headphones. While we're here, let me recommend Panasonic ErgoFit in-ear earbud headphones. That's RP-HJE120-V. They cost less than $10. Wow. They're Amazon's choice. In addition to fitting well inside my ears and having a remarkable sound quality for their low price, they also don't have a stupid microphone remote thing to roll over onto while you're asleep. This is important to me because I listen to white noise when I sleep. If the headphones I'm using have one of those microphone remote button things, touching it causes music to start playing, which wakes me up. Just as in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, a tutorial window early in the game offers you a free top-up of your special meter so you can experience your ultimate attack. I just gotta say, when I was a game design consultant on mobile games in the early 2010s, most of every one of the many presentations that I gave consisted of talking about the FTUE, the first-time user experience. One of the general common sense rules that I reiterated pretty much every day for like a year was that if during your tutorial you have to give give the player a currency for free rather than teaching them how to earn that currency on their own, maybe you have over-designed the mechanic to which that currency pertains. Just putting that out there. Maybe there's too much loot in this game? Progressing through Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna The Golden Country requires leveling up. Leveling up requires battling. Battling requires characters. And characters eat loot like it went out of style yesterday. It's open season on loot. They're going hog bonkers on this loot. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna The Golden Country is a Japanese role-playing game developed after Final Fantasy XV. So of course you level up and craft at campfires. Every time you reach a campsite, the game whips open that crafting menu, and you proceed to make whatever stuff you have adequate loot to craft. Making stuff requires loot. Every character can make different stuff. Maybe about 3/4 of the way through the game, you're going to start liking some of the stuff you can make more than some of the other stuff you can make. Though for the bulk of the experience, you're just going to make whatever you can, whenever you can. You'll look at this list and be like, I have enough stuff to make one of these. The menu presents you a legible checklist of the stuff you need, and at the bottom there's an ice-cold fraction informing you how much of the necessary nonsense you have and how much you don't. Maybe halfway through the campaign, you're going to start recognizing which things where have the stuff that you notice at campfires you only have in single digits, where you have everything else in double digits. Until then, and heck, even afterward, you're just gonna grab whatever you can see whenever you can see it. In crossing the line between abundance and saturation, is it even loot anymore? Or is it an obstacle? If you watched the person next to you playing this game on the bus with the sound turned off, you would have a hard time understanding if the character inside the screen loved the loot or hated it, wishing to pick it up off the ground only so that the annoyance of its very presence did not infect other passers-by. With the sound on, we can clearly hear whichever character we're controlling loudly exclaim in pleasured expectation every time we approach a loot hole and jam the action button. Again and again, with the tone of voice like a greedy thief rubbing her hands together, Laura exclaims,
なんか楽しくなってきた.
Roughly, ooh, this is gonna be fun. Each of every character's loot-getting exclamations are so palpably effervescent that to hear them repeated in duplications of robotic exactitude in shocking proximity is the birthing point of dozens of questions too philosophical for any player of Japanese role-playing games to ever answer.
何が入ってるのかな? 何が入ってるのかな?
These are games where numbers go up, and we love the numbers, and we love watching them go up because they go up. Do we love the loot because the character loves the loot? We know the characters love the loot because they say they love the loot. The most nefarious query I can conjure is thus this: who wrote the lines by which our heroes love the loot? Was it a writer, or was it a
game designer?
子供の頃に戻ったみたいだ。
It occurs to me that my protagonist's vocal excitement indicates that they cherish the mere thought of maybe filling in part of an ingredients list. Are we even playing a video game at this point? Or are we grocery shopping on the behalf of an eccentric robot billionaire who has never even seen food? In what I see as a brazen confession of cold-blooded guilt, one sequence very early in the story sees fit to mute our hero's happy loot-rooting exclamations. Our characters have just arrived at a town that the rampaging villain has burned to the ground. Our hero knows that her mother had lived in this town in the past. As our hero grapples with the possibility that her mother has died, somber music plays. We explore the village for clues. On our way from point A to point B, many glimmers indicate loot. Our hero may collect loot en route to the next cutscene. Just because her mom might be dead doesn't mean her anthropomorphic sword ain't trinket hungry. Yet as she collects loot during this stillness, it is in stark silence to better allow the player's eardrums to soak in the dramatic music. Clearly someone, either a writer or a game designer, or maybe the director himself, agreed that a curbing of the mechanical enthusiasm was in order. Thus and so, it is with a scientist's curiosity that I arrive at the conclusion that there's too much loot.
Bubba?
I want to buy this music. Yasunori Mitsuda and his crew of acolytes have outdone themselves again. The original tracks they've provided for Torna, The Golden Country, outshine even Xenoblade Chronicles 2's original soundtrack, and that's saying a lot. If you've spent even 14 seconds with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you'd know better than to even ask me if the music in this expansion is any good. The music is glorious. It is rich, dense, lush, and sophisticated. I've played through this whole game, and I still can't get enough of those hot tunes. Hey Nintendo, Yasunori Mitsuda, and Monolith Soft, can you just put this on Apple Music? I'm sure I'm not the only person who would listen to it at work all day. For the record, the only other video game soundtrack I have in my iTunes playlist on my computer at work is Final Fantasy XIII Lightning Returns, which I bought on CD. Now, in 2018, streaming services are so profoundly ubiquitous, I don't even know how to buy most music digitally anymore. And my computer doesn't even have a CD drive. I need to make more friends to progress the story of this game. Since Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna The Golden Country is a Japanese role-playing game developed after the Japanese release of Dragon Quest XI, one of the core features of the game is community. By running errands for people around the land, you recruit them into your inner circle. Being that this is a Japanese role-playing game which does not have the words dragon and quest in the title, it takes inner circle quite literally. It's like the game designers were sitting around and one of them said, "Dude, what if Animal Crossing was Microsoft
Excel.
I don't know if I have to say any more about that. Look, I had a colonoscopy last week. My doctor told me I have ulcers in my large intestine and that they were definitely caused by either stress or Advil. I dumped my Advil in the toilet because I know myself well enough to know that I love Advil enough to eat it out of the garbage. Seeing as I've swiftly defeated ibuprofen, it's time to do the same for stress. I mean, this isn't even a joke. I'm telling you the truth. That is actually what my doctor said. If I try to talk any more about the community feature in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna The Golden Country, I will be directly going against my doctor's orders to chill the heck out. So let's finish this up so I can go home and continue working toward that platinum trophy in Dragon Quest XI. I enjoyed Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna The Golden Country. If you played all the way through Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it would be absolutely ridiculous if you did not play this expansion. If you didn't play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and the game you're seeing in this video interests you, maybe get Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and then play this expansion later. Yeah, I'm just coming right out and saying, prequels are sorta weak on a fundamental level, and Torna The Golden Country is yet another example of the original thing being more of itself than the prequel is. Well, I'm Tim Rogers. I was born stupid. However, I will not die hungry. Video games forever, Kotaku.com.
何が入ってるのかな。何が入ってるのかな。